Hey folks, thanks for stopping in. We're on part 5 of our series of stud and nut testing here at Fanta Machine. We've already tested the effects of lube, clamping force you get when you torque something down, the strength of various kinds of nuts, what it takes to break things, how much safety factor do you have when you torque down that fastener, whether it's holding the head or a main cap or whatever. Today we're going pull out depth. How deep do those threads have to be in the block to take full advantage of the stud you've got or the bolt you're using? We're going to be checking various materials. We're going to do aluminum just for the fun of it. We're going to just see how much thread it takes to pull the threads or break the stud in steel, with a standard stud and with an undersized stud. Undersized meaning these were made with about 10 thousandths undersized pitch diameter. Pitch diameter is effectively the working diameter of that fastener. The outside dimension isn't as fussy as that pitch diameter. Then we're going to do the same thing with cast iron. We're going to see what it takes to pull it out, plus we'll have undersized. And then we're going to have a shootout between 4140 studs and H13 tool steel studs. So, here we go. Okay, we're ready to break something. We've got a piece of aluminum, a 6061 T6 alloy. It's been drilled and tapped. We've got the stud all the way in. It's about 1.25 inches of good full thread. Now we know that at 180 foot-pounds of torque, it develops about 950 pounds of pressure on the gauge. Now, I'm going to run some stuff up here to catch them if and when they let go. Okay. That's approximately what it would be with 180 foot-pounds of torque. Now, let's just keep going until either the aluminum gives or the stud gives. That should be about yield strength right there. That's what we've seen in other tests. Yep, and the stud is yielding. We've reached about maximum, and it should break somewhere in here. Either strip the threads or break the stud. And it broke the stud. Okay, next up, we've got a chunk of steel that's been drilled and tapped. The stud is only engaged by 3/4 of an inch into here. We'll make sure we aren't going to thread it in. Okay, it's about 1 3/8 sticking out. Make sure that doesn't spin deeper in there. Still at 1 3/8. Okay, let's just pump it up and see which gives first. Now the last one with the aluminum, with the 1.25 inch of thread engagement, broke the stud. Now that was quite a bit more thread. Let's just see how strong this steel is. Okay, it's giving there. At about 1300. There. It broke very similar to the aluminum. That was only with 3/4 of an inch of thread engagement. And the threads are just fine in the piece of steel. Okay, folks. Next, we're going with an undersized stud, 10,000 small on the pitch diameter. It's rattly loose. It's way looser than even the cheapest hardware store nuts and bolts you can buy. This is with 3/4 of an inch of thread engagement. About 1 9/16 sticking out. Let's make sure it doesn't thread back in there and give us a false reading. Still 1 9/16. Okay, let's just pump it up and see what we get. We know we've broken them. The stud will break at a little over 1,300 pounds of pressure on the gauge. There, we're getting some pressure built up. Right there is about what we'd have if we torqued that down to 180 foot-pounds of torque. Let's just see how much more we've got here. Starting to go down, something's giving. And we still broke the stud. The threads were giving. Those sloppy, loose threads were giving. Only on there by that much. Well, let's see. Let's do another one. We've got more of these undersized ones. Let's just see what about 5/8 of an inch will do. Now this is in steel. Okay, there's 5/8 of an inch. It actually might be a little bit less than that because that last thread is never just perfectly formed. Look at any rolled thread fastener and you'll see that. Okay, that one's sticking out about 1 3/8. Not quite. It stayed put. Let's pump that up and see what we get. I forgot to put those blocks in there one time. Those pieces will really go flying. There, we're building pressure. About, yeah, we're very, very close to what we normally are and it's giving, it's yielding. Pressure is going down, which means we're going to hit tensile. And there it went. And even at only 5/8 of an inch of thread engagement, with an undersized stud, it still broke the stud. Tells you how strong threads are. Next we're going to do some cast iron. That's more what engines are made out of. Okay, here we have cast iron. Engine blocks are made out of cast iron. That's what we should be testing in, right? This has got 1 inch of thread engagement. Just make sure that that doesn't screw back into there and give us a false reading. Stayed put. Now this is gray cast iron. I don't know exactly what engine blocks are made of. Oop, better put our blocks in here just in case. I'm sure it's going to be nothing bad. Okay, we're getting up in the range where, yeah, it's starting to give. It's yielding. It isn't going any higher as I pump it. It's starting to drop, which means it's going to break the stud. Okay, we've got another one set up here. This one's only 3/4 of an inch. Let's see how well that takes it. Okay, our blocks in place. Three-quarters of an inch thread engagement. Which is going to let go? Cast iron or the stud? We're right up in the neighborhood of where it's going to break the stud. Yeah, probably still is. Giving, there it went, and yep, broke the stud. Okay. Here's another one of them really loose ones. 10,000's undersized. Let's just see what that one does. This one has got 1 inch of thread engagement also. I expect we'll break the stud on this one also, because we haven't seen a lot of difference between the undersized, badly undersized, and the regular studs. Yep, we're right up in that range again. Yep, hit the yield, now it's coming back down. And there it breaks. Broke off about flush. So one more time here. This one is another undersized, but only 3/4 of a thread in 3/4 of an inch of thread engagement. Not quite as high this time. Well, it's getting there. It's starting to yield now. Threads are a lot stronger than we give them credit for. Even badly worn, undersized threads. Okay, now up. High strength, H13 tool steel studs. These are, according to my hardness tester, about Rockwell 52, 53. Tensile strength should be 220 to 230 psi. That's the regular studs that we've been testing are 185, 190, somewhere in there. So we'll see some higher pressures and a bigger bang probably. This is with 1 inch. This has got 1.25 inches of thread engagement. Okay, we're already beyond where the other ones break. Okay, I think I felt it give right there. Yep. So instead of about 13, 13 and a half, it's a little over 1,700. So we're 400 pounds per square inch higher. Yeah. Put a nice dent in that block of wood. Broke the stud. There's 1.25 inches of thread engagement. Well, we've got another one set up here with 1 inch. Let's just see where that goes. And it stayed put. This is 1 inch of thread engagement. Let's see which let goes. Let's go first. The cast iron or the stud. We're right up in that same range as before. And the stud broke. And it jammed into the wood enough to bring particles out. That's some good stuff, my friends. Those threads in blocks and cast iron is a lot stronger than you think. People think you got to have threads all the way to the bottom. Well, Looks like no more than 1.25 will do for anything we got. Okay folks, you've seen the kind of damage we've done here. Now, with the magic of video editing. Hi folks, we're here at the home of Dagenhart Motorsports. I asked Bill if I could come down and break something, and he said sure. So we're going to break some studs in this engine block. This gives us the final word on how much thread engagement really works in an engine. Okay, the next bit of video you're going to see, we're going to use a standard strength stud. We're going to do it first with 1 inch of thread engagement into the block, and then we're going to do another one with 3/4 of an inch of thread engagement in the block, and we'll just see what happens when we put all that pressure on it. Okay folks, we've got that screwed in with 1 inch of thread engagement into the block. We're going to pump it up, and we're just going to see where things end up. We should see the pressure peak at a little over 1,300 pounds per square inch. And then it's going to break after it stretches some. There it's giving. We're into the yield. It's giving quite a bit. There it broke. Okay, now we've got 3/4 of an inch thread engagement. Now we're going to see which gives first, the thread or the stud. And it broke the stud at 3/4 of an inch thread engagement. Well, we broke the stud when we've had 1 inch of thread engagement and 3/4 of an inch thread engagement. Now we're going to try 5/8.
What was you at when she...
It was about 1,300, just slightly lower than the others. Now, if the stud does not pull up, that means it stripped the threads.
That's what she did too, strip the threads.
Well, that's what we're looking for too.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, the stud is still in there, which means we simply pulled the thread. So 5/8 of an inch thread engagement in an IH block won't quite hold it, but 3/4 of an inch will. That's not what you'd expect, would it be?
Nope, not at all.
Okay, folks, you saw it break with only 5/8 of an inch of thread engagement, or it stripped the threads, excuse me, and we have it right here. Pulled the threads right out of the block. But now we've got one that the pitch diameter of the thread is 0.010 of an inch smaller than standard. So we're gonna that would be like a really loose thread, even looser than class 1. And we've got 1 inch of thread engagement again, and we're going to see what it'll take. Okay, we're getting up into the range of where something's going to let go. Yep, there you can feel it give. It let go. 1 inch thread engagement with a really loose thread, and it still broke the stud. Next, we're going to go for about 3/4 of an inch of engagement and see what happens. Okay, folks, now we've got another undersized stud, 10 thousandths smaller than standard, with only 3/4 of an inch of thread engagement. Well, let's see what happens. Okay, we stripped the threads that time. Yep, nothing left. So even with badly undersized threads, 1 inch of thread is all it takes to hold the capacity of this stud. Okay, folks, you just saw us pull it out with
3/4.
3/4 of an inch of thread engagement with an undersized stud. Here's the stud, and here is the remains of the thread that it pulled out. Now next up, we got some high tensile H13 tool steel studs. This one we've got down to 1.25 inches of a thread engagement. And we're going to just put a bunch of pressure on it and see what happens. I'm expecting that to fail at about 1,700 to 1,800 pounds of pressure on the gauge.
Which is how much tensile strength?
I don't know how much. Tensile strength should be in the neighborhood of 220, 230,000 pounds per square inch. I don't know what that's going to be for clamping pressure. I didn't figure it out. But the standard clamping pressure at 180 foot-pounds of torque, which on the gauge is about 1,000, is just short of 24,000 pounds of clamping force, which is incredible if you think about it. Well, let's pump it up and see if we can break something. We both have our glasses on. $1,800, and it gave it about 17.5. And something's giving as the pressure goes up and back down. Yeah. Now that is impressive. It's stuck right in the 6x6. Yeah. That's pressure. Okay, folks, you just saw us break an H13 tool steel stud with 1.25 inch thread engagement. You saw what it did when it stuck into that 6x6. Well, we've got another one. This one we only got 1 inch of thread engagement. We're going to see which gives first, the block or the stud. And judging by the fact that we couldn't pull it apart with 1.25 inches of thread with that much pressure, it means these blocks are darn tough and hard. Let's see what this one does. With 1 inch of thread engagement, the other one gave at about 1,750 psi. There we're at almost 1,700. There's 17.5. And it started to yield, which means we'll probably break this stud also. it gets to yield, it'll keep going there. Yep, same thing. Look at that. Sticks right in it. That's a lot of force, folks. Okay, folks, you saw that H13 tool steel stud with only 1 inch of thread engagement break and stick in the 6x6 again, just like the first one. Takes a lot of force to slam something like that in there.
Yeah, that goes to show that these blocks with 1 inch of thread should hold any stud on there that you could come up with, and it sure doesn't hurt to turn them in further, but that's quite a block.
Yeah, I didn't anticipate anything like this. I figured it's going to take at least 1.25 inches, if not 1.5 inches, to really stand up to these H13s. That block is just plain strong. On that note, I think we're about done here. I want to thank Bill and his crew. We had a good time here, and we managed to break some stuff.
Well, Ed, thanks for coming down, and we sell your studs, so anybody that's interested, give me a call, and we can get you set up. We keep the ARP nuts and Ed studs, so if you're interested, you can always give me a call, 608-343-7434. Thank you.
Yep, and you saw his little announcement there for Facebook, so you can get a hold of them on there. You can also see some of the shots of their tractors. They've got a super stock diesel, and it runs darn good.
Complete pulling tractors, portions of them, just a little bit of everything here. As we did our super stock diesel, we built that entirely ourselves with help of Esden and Terry Benson. So. This is the back of it. Of course, we fabricate the hitches. We have the guards, the roll guards bent up, and then we mount them from there.
What kind of transmission and things?
The transmission, it is a Profab. Larry cut the center section out to get it to fit in there, and so it's going to be a pretty neat little toy here.
And this is light limited super stock.
Yes.
Okay. And then you're also building another light limited super stock that we'll see here. And tell us about this one.
Yeah, well, this one right here, where Esden had built the motor for it a year ago, and we're now doing the transmission and the differential on it. We're putting a 3-speed gearbox in that. So that one is being built up in the Minneapolis area by Carl Atlas, Atlas Tractor. He's doing that one for us. The back of our tractor that we built, Terry Benson actually put the differential together for us, and we built everything around it, the side frames and the whole thing with Esden and Terry, and we worked on it for about a year to get it done. So as you can see, we pull in the light and the heavy super stock class.
And if you want to see videos of this tractor in action,
right here, or just go on to Degenhart Motorsports Facebook, and we have just about all of the pulls we've made with this on Facebook, so you can go back and watch them all.
Thanks again, Bill.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you, Ed.
Thanks a lot, folks. We'll see you on the other side.